Elections in Nigeria are reportedly influenced by financial power, raising concerns about the role of money in determining electoral outcomes. From the high costs of nomination forms to expensive campaigns and allegations of vote buying, politics often seems more accessible to the wealthy than to the ordinary citizens. Political godfatherism and the use of state resources for electioneering further complicates the process, making it harder for candidates without significant financial backing to compete for. For ordinary Nigerians, this reality presents difficult question. If money determines who gets into office, where does that leave competence, integrity, and service? Many credible candidates without access to vast financial resources struggle to compete, raising concerns about whether our democracy is truly open to all. As we move towards another election cycle, we ask, can candidates without deep financial backing ever stand a chance? And how can Nigeria build a political system where leadership is determined by vision and competence rather than the size of one's financial war chest? I am Ezenwawagu. Welcome to Electoral Reform Half Hour on NTA News 24 Abuja. This program is proudly brought to you by the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with support, general support from MacArthur Foundation. Our guest tonight is Dr. Andrew Mamedu. He is the country director of Action Aid Nigeria, leading efforts in social justice, poverty eradication, and sustainable development. With vast experience in development leadership, he oversees strategic programs, policy advocacy, and partnerships to empower marginalized communities. He actively engages with government, civil society, and international stakeholders to influence policies that promote equity and justice while fostering a culture of inclusivity and innovation in leadership. It's my pleasure to welcome you today.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mamedu, how has it been? I know that it's long now you assumed the position of the country director, but I see that there are fantastic innovations that you are bringing to your work. Can you share a bit of that with us?
Thank you very much. It's been 1 year, 5 months since I took over the position. So technically, yeah, it's been a while. So once you have done over 1 year, it's a long time. And yes, our focus has been around how do we actually get poverty reduced in Nigeria. We've seen that poverty is increasing. Action Aid's mission, it's around eradicating poverty and injustice. And for us, the way to go about it is to work with the government through movement, through organizing, get citizens around to support and work with the government to put the right policies and frameworks in place to be able to eradicate poverty. So those are the things we have been doing around with working with young persons, working with women, and of course focusing on persons with disability as well. And of course, election sits at the center of all of this.
Absolutely. So that leads me to, just cut the chase straight. I know that vote buying remains a, persistent issue in Nigeria. And I know that you have vast experience, not just in programming and in advocacy. Are there strategies that comes to mind that can help to combat the demeaning menace of vote buying?
Okay, thank you very much. So vote buying is not something that is common to only Nigeria. It's something that is world over. In the last election in the US, we saw some provisional items being given to households from the various both political parties. So in some ways, some people see that as inducement and some form of vote buying. That's for even for developed climes. But in countries like ours, it is worse off. And the primary reason is as a result of the weaponization of poverty. So that's why we say poverty sits at the middle of this, at the center of this. So the weaponization of poverty has made people buyable. We've even seen cases of reverse vote buying, where opposition go to, political parties go to their opposition stronghold and pay people not to come out.
To vote.
Not to vote. Because they know naturally if they come out, they are going to vote for.
That's vote suppression.
Exactly. So that has been our trend. Where it came into limelight was in Edo State, where during Adams Shomole, that's where the whole issue of vote buying came into major limelight in Nigeria and the whole conversation around it. And since then, it's been increasing. Between the last election, 2019 election and 2023 election, MBS says that there was a 5% increase in the incidence of vote buying. So
5%.
5% increase from what it was in 2019. So technically, there has been vote buying, and it's not reducing; it is increasing. There are places, so there's a demand side and there's a supply side. So the demand side you would say are the people. Then of course the supply side are the politicians, the political parties, and what they do is they feel that, if that's where weaponization of poverty come. If we weaponize poverty, people are hungry, and Kogi State is a classical example. So you had a governor that was there, wasn't paying salary. It got to time of election. He then brought out money. So that can be seen as a form of vote buying. So he brought out money and paid, and then started giving money to people. People could take anything to be able to survive at the end of the day. So when you weaponize people, you force people to come to that level. But the critical part are the people that are so that's the supply side. Those the politicians and the political parties that are involved in, and it has been institutionalized. So you now have cases of who outbuys the other, who pays more. So this party paid 5,000. You paid 5,000. Don't worry, we'll match you. This one will pay 7,000. So that is what is happening. But clearly, for us to deal with it, we have to go back to the Electoral Act that caps the amounts that people are supposed to spend. We are not able to track that. So if we're not able to track that says you cannot spend about 5 billion for presidency, 1 billion for governor, 100 million for senators, and 70 million for House of Rep members. If you're not able to track that and keep that on hold, definitely we know that there is no way the last election that any of the political party limited their spending to 5 billion. So what can INEC do? Should we get to a point? INEC is already overburdened. Is INEC able to track this?
Is it not a law enforcement issue?
Yeah, of course, it is a law enforcement issue. But of course, if INEC does not play that coordinating role to get the law enforcement, so for instance, if people are caught, they are sanctioned, and the political party, imagine if a political party is sanctioned and said, for the next 2 cycles of election, you will be banned from the process, then people will sit up. And you have evidence to prove that there was vote buying. We see people carrying Ghana Must Go. They even come with POS and all of those things. They do transfers on stage. So there are even tracks to show that there was money exchange of money and all that. Then from the people's perspective, I was in a community in FCT. The community took us about an hour, 30 minutes to get to the community. And they said the only time they see politicians is when it comes to campaign, that nowhere is too far for them to get to during campaign. So they are able to travel that distance to get to them. And they promise them everything. I'm like, okay, but what then happens that they've never seen them. They've done that repeatedly. But now, what they only do, the only thing that they benefit from this government, from the politicians, is when they come, they give them their 5,000 and they take it. I said, why do you have to take it? Are you not selling your vote? They're like, no, it's the one they see that they will collect, that they have promised them, and they will wait for 4 years repeatedly. There was no road, there was no sign of government presence in the community. And they keep coming there every year from the local government.
I hear you clearly. So do you weaponize poverty?
So de-weaponize poverty, but if there's good governance, clearly that's the root cause. So if you de-weaponize poverty, you're able to deal with it. However, that is the overarching framework in terms of dealing with it. However, because even if they de-weaponize poverty, there are still political parties, there are still individuals that will be involved in it. How do we track? We do budget tracking. So how do we track? You can count this thing. So a billboard, an average billboard, those big billboards, some of them cost as much as 25 million to put it on for like 3, 4, 5 months. You count how many of those billboards, you count how much has been spent and all that. You are tracking the resources that these people are using. If monies, when the security agencies want to track things, they track them. So you see a transaction of 5,000 going out from a certain account or going out from around some certain period of election, you don't need soothsayer to tell you that this could be vote buying. Then you then drill down, narrow down, and say what is happening here. How do you track them? Who is sending this money? Where is it coming from? And most times, it is the messengers that we catch and we try to deal with. How do we track the resources to the source, to the political party, to the individuals that are the originators? Because it's the money bags that are able to deal with this. If we don't do that, like you said in your intro, the brightest and the best that do not have deep pockets will never rule us. So we will be left to, it's only those that with deep pockets that can be able to wriggle their way through the system, win elections, and rule in this country.
So apparently this has consequences for governance after elections.
Totally. It has huge consequences, huge, from every ramification, from every side. So I'll tell you a couple of ways it has, the ramification it has. Now, the first thing is, these persons are not charity. Those that come and they buy votes. So by the time, if they spend 5 billion, 10 billion in buying votes, when they come into power, they will find a way of recouping that money. It's natural. So it is natural, just a simple logic in economics. So demand and supply. So once that's demand is there, supply is there, and the demand is there, when they meet, they will find a way of find an equilibrium. And that equilibrium would be, how do I make my money back? Where do I get these resources from? And naturally, they would get it from the office, so from the perks of office. So the money you have taken, the 5,000 that have been paid, you as a citizen, you would then pay the price for the next 4 years. The person will be there in the office for 4 years. The money, the health center they're supposed to have, you have paid, you have gotten 5,000 for it. The road, all the social amenities that you're supposed to have been taken over by the money you paid. Secondly, there is the entitlement mentality. We have seen people fighting and say, "Oh, I paid you. How come you lost? We lost in that word. After I gave you so amount." We've heard those kind of stories. We've seen them on social media and all of that. So there's that entitlement mentality. It gives the person the audacity and makes them feel effrontery to say that we have paid for this election, so I have bought it and I am entitled to it. So that entitlement mentality is there. So they think that because they have spent that money, then they should be able to try. So at the end of the day, it is the people that are suffering from it.
The depressing picture that you've painted now draws us to how new entrants can find their way in. If self-respecting people who don't have the war chest, as they say, what are the ways they can find entry points into leadership right now?
I think it's about institutions, about the citizens, and of course about other stakeholders like the civil society, media, and all of that. So looking at institutions, so you have the Electoral Commission. You have so people argue that the Electoral Commission should be unbundled and there should be one aspect. It's strong enough. There is the theory of institution. So let me explain the theory of institution. The theory of institution places the burden of the institution to be able to take responsibility, for me to hold the institution responsible in some cases. And the theory of institution, the political party and their candidate is a good example of the theory around theory of institution, where the political parties are supposed to be responsible to the citizens. I should not bother myself with your candidate A, candidate B. So I should not bother myself with all the governors you have put in, but I should bother myself with the political party that is there. Because they have a manifesto, they're able to deliver, then I will vote for your political party. Then in turn, you will hold your candidate responsible. But what happens is you have citizens pursuing every candidate. I have to know every candidate.
So we have a renewed hope agenda.
Every agenda, everybody. But I should hold the political, but that is not working. So clearly, in terms of institution, we have to get institutions to work. So the political parties, INEC has got to play a role. The law enforcement agency has got to play a role. Then the citizens need to recognize. So we need to get to that breaking point We do not want
You are
to.
building something. I know
Yes.
that there is something you're working on. Is it People's Power or something?
Yes, motion.
Yes, that you're working on. We will go on a break now.
Okay.
Electoral Reform Half Hour will continue shortly. When we come back, we'll pivot on that conversation. Stay with us. We're glad to have you back. Electoral Reform Half Hour continues right away. Many Nigerians disengage, completely from, governance issues after elections. Is there something we can do to incentivize them to not just vote, but also to be, actively engaged in civic participation in governance?
Thank you very much. So if you take a look at, let's take Nigeria as a good example. If you go to the southeast of Nigeria, the southeast have the mindset of we are responsible for ourselves. We do not depend so much on government. So you have a lot of self-help. There's a lot of people doing things around for themselves and all of that. And that is manifested in their level of participation in elections and all of that. And if you look at the body language of the people, every election, people try to, so you have a lot of civic education, civic engagement, mobilizing citizens to come out. That should continue, definitely. Civil society should do that, play that huge role. Action Aid, your organization, all of us should come out and play that organization to mobilize citizens to come out. But there is an end. Election is a process, it's not an end. So even if the candidate emerges, it's not an end. So it's a circle. So when the candidate comes out, citizens should be able to engage the candidate, or the person, the president, the governor, whoever, and engage them at that level, ask them questions, hold them accountable, and demand good governance from them. Now, when they don't see good governance, then they seem to withdraw, like, okay, there is no hope for this system of government that we are having. But the truth is, even if you have a military regime today, it's still going to be the same thing. It's going to even be worse at the end of the day. So that's not even the solution to the issue. That's not the solution. The solution is we have the civilian government, but how would citizens rise up and rally around to do that one? Before that, the very important issue is confidence in the electoral process. Citizens having confidence in the electoral process. So you hear citizens say, oh, this election has been decided. It is dangerous for our democracy. And increasingly you see young people saying that, nope, we don't trust the system. Whoever is going to win, they already decided it. But guess what? In our election, sometimes we have just 20%, 30% of people coming out. But guess what? If more people come out, it becomes more difficult to rig. We're not saying that there are possibility of rigging. We're not saying that. We're not saying we saw the IREV, we saw some of the results that were posted there. We saw all those things, right? We saw what happened in the last general election. We saw all those things. But if half of the people that are registered comes out, it becomes more difficult to rig those elections. And it has been manifested in several places. You saw some opposition winning in some stronghold of other people because more people came out. So it is not a case of, that is not the response. People withdrawing and staying out from election, that shouldn't be the response of Nigerians. But rather, let us motivate ourselves. Let us motivate Nigerians. Let us come out and decide. Because whether you come out or not, whether you vote or not, you have decided.
In fact, in my words, you voted.
You voted. You have voted for whoever emerges.
You voted for what you didn't want.
Yes, exactly. So whoever emerges, you supported that person. That's it. So if you didn't want to,
just tell me a bit about the initiatives. I know that you've brought, coming into Action Aid, there are quite a lot of things I've known, I've heard that you brought to build citizens' power. And strengthen citizens to be able to make these demands and questions. Is it something you want to
share? Okay, so Action Aid is working with other organizations, other individuals, organizations, networks, movements. So we believe that if there's power in people, so the power belongs to the people. There's the president, the governor, They are agents of the people. They are there, they hold power for us in trust. So citizens should be able to decide how and what happens and how it is done and all that. So what ActionAid is doing is working with all of these agencies to be able to mobilize Nigerians. So we have what we call Motion. Motion is movement for the transformation of Nigeria. And Motion is a movement of movements. You have over 100 organizations, from individual organizations to large organizations, network organizations that have up to 2 million, 3 million members. Some of them have up to 7 million membership as member of Motion. So all of us coming together like, okay, you know what? Let us come together and towards a cause around accountability around our electoral process. So this is a major area for us. We want accountability around our electoral process and accountability around the social sector. So those two things are the focus of Motion. We're not doing everything, no climate, no. We're just focus on accountability within those two. So we're in the process of formation. You have organizations like FIDA. You have organizations like farmers movements, different movements as part of it. And there are 100 organizations currently registered and involved in it with 30 million membership. And for us, we're just targeting 20% of those 30 million membership to be actively involved in the issue of governance. And once we're able to get Nigerians involved, we'll be able to hold our government accountable and get them to...
That's revolutionary. So let's pivot away from this to issues that are on the table for review, constitutional amendments. I want to just share your view there on early voting, diaspora voting. What do you think? Do you support that? Is that something you would want happening? Inmates voting, and these other issues around appointments of resident electoral commissioners and all that. Just in rounding up.
So all of these are towards strengthening the electoral process. And I think it's time. I hope the president's body language and action also shows this. So the president should not be this president should not be the first person that will go through 4 years and have no form of review of the electoral acts. The president should not set that record, because every government we have had since 1999 to date, we have always had a review. That means there's always a way of getting it better. So we have all these beautiful, great ideas, great initiatives. So talking about diaspora voting, let us start with some of them. We might not get it all right at the beginning, but let's start with some of them. And how do we put measures in place? If we are, technology has helped us in dealing with this, and other countries have done it in years. The president said something 2 days ago that we are happy to learn good things from other clients that are doing well. So this is an example of what is happening and what is going very well for other countries. We should learn from it and be able to get Nigeria to copy it. So diaspora voting, early voting. So imagine removing the security agencies, all the officials, let them vote. But that's what happens in other countries. So they vote early. So once their vote comes in, it's a huge number. You are disenfranchising.
Very enlightened voters at that.
Exactly. So it will be a way. So that they carry the gun against citizens might not be their will. But when they go into when they go into casting their vote, they might vote in the opposite direction. You never can tell. So you never can tell them because they are there, then they will vote for the party. So it's a test for popularity for the party in power. So let us get the all of these officials to come out and cast their vote. So the women bill, civil society, of course, also as well.
Media.
The media, all these groups should come out and cast their vote. I don't think they should be disenfranchised because they are playing a significant role on just maybe one day in the life of the whole electoral process. And just to say that election is not only about that day.
It's a process.
It's a process. So there is a pre, there is a day, and there is a post. Yeah. And the election is not even finalized until the Supreme Court rules. In such cases,
judicial review is also part of
the process. So, and that is one of the things that ActionAid is doing a judicial review of the process, looking at past judgment and say, what are we getting right, what are we getting wrong? And those should help us in amending the electoral act, and the president should be all of us should be bold enough. The presidency should be bold enough to okay, we are pulling our weight behind this. Let us amend the electoral act to reflect this. How do we make sure that the electoral officials are truly independent? So that amendment will remove the power from one person. So it's not partisan. And that's part of it. All of these things are linked. By the time it becomes partisan, people are like, oh, when an electoral, a national commissioner is said to be partisan, you can see he was carrying a card and or she was carrying a card, and you're saying, oh, how do I trust my vote, that this person will protect my vote? So how do we make sure that we take away that power from just one person and we institutionalize it and let it work? This is one thing I know about my country and about the government. Once the government is set out to and decided to take an action on any issue, they go out and they get a result. Ebola is an example. We have several examples that they go out for, and this electoral process should be another example that they will.
This is, Dr. Momedu, this is where we want to draw the curtain on today's conversation. Electoral Reform Hour, half hour, and we wish to specially thank you, Dr. Momedu, for coming to share your thoughts with us. Electoral Reform Half Hour is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with support from MacArthur Foundation. We are live every Saturday from 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. with a repeat broadcast every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. on same station. You can contact us on your social media handles showing on your TV screen. Thank you very much for watching. I am Ezenwa Wagu.